You're listening to Inside Real Estate with Irv Tremblay on Newstalk 980.
Irv, thanks for holding through the break. Much appreciate it.
I'm here, Dave.
I want to get in touch a little bit back, if it's okay. Just before we went to the break there, we were talking about a home you sold that sold for over $1 million, and then you sold the one next door for pretty close to $1 million. But everything that was part and parcel of that, and we touched on, the appraisals. You went and got the appraisal done. You did check the competitor and everything else. And that's got to be quite a process when you're dealing with, I would assume, a somewhat unique home given the potential value.
Sure. So in both cases, we spent a lot of time on pricing. Both of those properties I had appraised up front. Mm-hmm. And so the second property that we just recently sold, the one for under $1 million, we priced the property below appraised value and put the house on the market. We get showings, we get feedback. I get a buyer that calls me that isn't my client. I have no association. Called me on another property a month earlier, and that property was sold. Wants to see the home. And I have said on this show many times, when you are a buyer, you should hire the best agent you can, get a contract, and not be calling listing agents because they represent the seller. I have a contract with the seller of that property. Mm-hmm.
And you're a nice, swell guy all around and everything else, but your contract and your responsibility, fiduciary and otherwise, is to your client.
That's not what this gentleman does. So he's calling listing agents. And when I talked to him the first time, I said, why don't you hire an agent? Oh, everybody wants to be my agent, and I'm just going to deal with the listing agent. Okay, that's fine. So I show him the property once, show it to him with his wife twice. They really are beating me up on price, and we don't think this house is worth that. And I'm defending the price because that is my job for the seller. Mm-hmm. So I did comparable sales, and I handed them, with the permission of my seller, the appraisal for more money than we're asking. Well, that's ridiculous, and we know the market, and we don't think it's worth that. And I said, it is, and here are the reasons why. And this will be a good investment if you buy this property. So I get a call from another agent the next day. We've got an offer on your property. This is the property we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, it is this client that I've showed 3 times to. And I don't have an issue with that. Mm-hmm. Now they've got their own representation.
Well, he finally took your advice and went out and got an agent.
Yeah. And if I have to show my seller's property 3 times to get it sold, I don't care that I'm the one writing the offer. So they write an offer with a pretty experienced agent. Leave the offer open without me asking for a full 24 hours. I have no idea why they do that. In the meantime, we had a pretty good showing from an out-of-town client. And I called that agent, with my seller's permission, say, we think we have an offer coming in on the property. Why don't you get your client back in town? Because we believe that offer's going to be open for a day. Mm-hmm. They do. Now all of a sudden that first buyer is competing.
Why would you leave it open 24 hours, that offer?
I don't know. And I didn't ask them to. It wasn't part of the thing. They just did that. I don't know the reason. In this case, big mistake, because that's not who bought the property. The second out-of-town buyer. And they both ended up knowing, we advised both parties, that they were competing. Now, the second agent I really sold on price and offered up the appraisal and did a better job selling them, obviously, than the first buyer. And so the second buyer got the property. Now, I'm not so sure we wouldn't have put a deal together with the first one if we only had that offer on the table. Maybe we would have dealt with them and got it sold to the first buyer who looked at it 3 times. And they really missed out on a great property because that property is just a fabulous location.
So is that being strong on price, Irv?
It's being very strong on price, and it's, in my mind, doing the job for your seller.
Do enough agents do that?
I don't think they do. I don't think they're well enough trained. I don't think they do enough research on pricing. Most of them don't spend the money and get the appraisal up front. And I personally didn't care if I represented the buyer or not. In fact, I think I was more comfortable just representing the seller. It's not always about the money.
Is it difficult? And that's what they call both ends, doing both ends?
Sure.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah. Limited dual agency.
Limited dual agency. I knew there was a technical term for it.
Yeah.
Is it difficult to do that?
Sure it is. Agents say, I don't have any difficulty. Well, usually it's not a difficulty with the agent. It's sometimes a difficulty representing the buyer or the seller, because you do know things about the buyer and the seller, and you want to treat them fairly, but you have in your mind all the information from both sides, and that can be a problem. In this case, it was great because I ended up only representing the seller. I had 2 offers. We got them a great price, great terms, competitive offers, and they were happy.
Another success story.
Sure.
Let's do a couple little snippets. I know we were chatting before we came on the air. Just a couple little stories that we can get into.
Well, we talked about the seller a couple weeks ago that listed the property, and the seller was a seller. And he had listed the property, and it was an expired listing. He had 2 agents out originally when he listed the property, and he sold those agents on his price.
He's a salesman.
He's a salesman. And he actually said, I'm a better salesman than those 2 guys that come out here. So his house didn't sell. He sold them on price and a reduced commission. So I went out. I reduced the price, not a whole lot. And I said, you need to pay more commission because you're not competitive.
See, this is, just very quickly, cutting commission doesn't necessarily mean you're going to put more money in your pocket.
No, because paying more commission and hiring possibly a better agent and offering more commission can get you a better price. It's about the net, not the commission, and people lose that all the time. So we get his property on the market. We get one showing, and we get an offer. So I go out to present the offer, and this guy's a good salesman, great guy. So he looks at the offer and says, I like the offer, but I want $4,000 more. So he says, I want you and the other agent to cut your commission 1%, and that will give me the $4,000, and we won't have to write a counter offer. Now, a lot of agents would do that. They just fold right there. But my job is to the seller and get them the most amount of money. And I'm not weak. I'm not a wet noodle. I try to be strong for my money and my seller's money. So I said, well, why don't we do this? You want $4,000. Let me counter $5,000, get you the 4 plus 1 that'll cover your legal expense. Oh, I don't like that. We could lose the buyer. I said, don't you have any confidence in me? I have to sell that agent on this $5,000 counter, and I knew the agent. That helps when you're an experienced agent as well, how capable they are, how well you can sell them. Oh, I don't want to lose the buyer. I says, I won't lose the buyer. I want to get you the $5,000. Counter, sell the agent on it, close it. Now, he paid more commission, but netted more money. Isn't that what it's all about?
It's the bottom line. Great story, Irv.
Yeah.
Irv's website, by the way, a great resource for you, www.irvsells.ca. That's irvsells.ca. Or you can give Irv a call, 790-3753, 790-3753. Good as always chatting with you, Irv.
You too, Dave.
You've been listening to Inside Real Estate with Irv Tremblay from Century 21.